Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. In One Piece, the romantic side of relationships is practically non-existent, and it's only those kinda already established relationships that we've seen that are ultimately possible. And others could still happen spontaneously, but they're rare when they happen. So in today's video, we're gonna talk about the reasons why the Straw Hats, and the reasons why Oda is avoiding creating these types of romantic relationships between characters that have been introduced in our One Piece story. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel or even if you've watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you'd leave us a like and even subscribe and maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out, especially with that old YouTube algorithm, and it keeps motivating us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So my friends, as many of you might already know, Oda's already stated that he would never want to have romance in One Piece because the Straw Hats already have a big goal across the vast sea, and it's really about their true passion in sailing and not necessarily looking for someone to fall in love with. Another reason for Oda-sensei saying that there's really no romance in One Piece is that there isn't really any space in the story to develop these passions and romances or even dramatic arcs about the love of each of the Straw Hat crew members, whether it be with each other or people outside the crew. So for us fans, the most we could probably hope for are the promises of couples that will come at the end of the One Piece story. For instance, Usopp and Kaya, or Sanji and Pudding, or even Luffy with Nami or Hancock, depending on which way Oda-sensei decides to take it. And there are many other couples made by fans, so all we really can do is wait and see which couples that we've imagined come about at the end of our story. But then again, a lot has changed in One Piece since its very early years, and it's not impossible that Oda-sensei could be interested in incorporating more romance in the near future. Now obviously, it can't be anything that disrupts or takes away from the manga's narrative structure, just maybe happening with a certain grace and prominence and something that would happen naturally, without much drama surrounding that it happens. But there are hints that Oda-sensei has left that could indicate he wants to take this direction based on some of the events we've already seen in the story. For example, in Dressrosa, there really was some substantial flirting between Sanji and Violet, more than his normal simping that he does over most beautiful women. Even though it didn't lead anywhere, that could be a seed that's planted for later. During the Whole Cake Island arc, Sanji once again had his heart stolen by Pudding, and this is a romance that could actually turn into a marriage, even though it didn't turn out the way we thought. Again, this is a seed that could come to fruition later. And of course, another couple that fans always talk about and discuss is Luffy and Boa Hancock. Now there is a big age difference between them, and it seems like the desires are kind of one-sided on Hancock's side, and Luffy just doesn't really seem to realize it or even feel the same way as her. As we saw it happen in the story, Hancock fell in love with Luffy after initially wanting to take his life, after the young pirate demonstrated that he truly had a good heart by saving her and her sisters on a couple of different occasions. Since then, the relationship has become somewhat complicated, to say the least, where Hancock has demonstrated that she has a very deep love for Luffy, and even seeing him several times where she has just been absolutely head over heels in love with him. But again, Luffy never really seems to react or even share the same feeling. He kind of sees her more as just a valued friend and somebody that he really cares about. In fact, despite telling Hancock several times that he just considered her a friend, Hancock has not given up her goal of winning Luffy's heart, no matter what it means or what it takes to make him fall in love with her. And it's not just Hancock that Luffy acts this way about. He has not really shown any attraction to any other characters, always remaining neutral when it comes to having a relationship with someone, because his main focus is becoming king of the pirates. And when you think about it, because each Straw Hat is currently going after their dreams, they probably put aside this search for any kind of romantic relationship, because theoretically any relationship would involve being tied to some place or someone, and as each of them are still free spirits, a relationship just isn't something in the cards or something that they would consider right at this moment. I mean, not even Sanji, who's pretty much in love with every single woman he meets throughout his travels, isn't really after a relationship. In fact, the only person that Sanji's ever really shown some deep connection with, of course, is Pudding, and he was really initially only doing that for the sake of his family. But ultimately, the Straw Hats' dreams, at the moment, is their actual goal and focus. And I especially don't see them giving it up, considering how far they've made it and really how tangibly close they've gotten to their dreams. Speaking of dreams, Luffy's dream is still unknown to us as the readers, even though he's revealed it to other people that he trusts, such as his crew, Ace, Sabo, Shanks, and even indirectly Yamato and Momonosuke. And it's said to be the same exact goal of the former Pirate King, Gold D. Roger. As for our second in command, Zoro, we already know that he shared his dream with Kuina and anybody else that'll hear him because he wants to become the greatest swordsman in the world. But in order to achieve this dream, he has to surpass every other swordsman in the world, including the current greatest swordsman in the world, Dracul Mihawk. The only time Zoro ever considered giving up his dream was because he was trying to protect Luffy from Bartholomew Kuma. And this is despite the fact that the first time that they met, Zoro threatened to take Luffy's life if he ever got in the way of his dream, proving his loyalty to his own dream over his own captain. Moving on to our navigator, Nami dreams of drawing a map of the entire world because it really doesn't exist. Now, she's already mapped out every area that she's been through, and it can be assumed that she's even created a world map based on other parts of her knowledge, maybe from Weatheria, or even other parts of her journey that happened prior to joining the crew. But we also have to know that even after her adventure concludes with the Straw Hats, if she doesn't have the whole world, she's gonna stay out there until she has drawn every single island and sea she can find. And this is of course counterintuitive because when Nami was younger, and even at certain times during the series, it still kinda defaults to her wanting to obtain wealth. But that really isn't her main goal, or maybe the wealth is just a means to an end so she can map the whole world. Moving on to our everyman and sniper Usopp, his dream is to become a brave warrior of the sea, just like his father Yasa. Now, he kind of implies back in Enies Lobby that he'd already achieved that dream before leaving the crew, but eventually he realized that in his battle with Luffy, he just hadn't caught up with his captain yet. Usopp has a second dream as well, and it was conceived just after the Little Garden arc when he met Dorian Bragi. And this dream is to visit Elbaf and see the giant warriors that he idolizes. And even during the post-war arc, Usopp developed another dream, and that's to become the true Sniper King. And this was of course after receiving Luffy's message about the 3D2Y that initiated the time skip so that the crew could become stronger over the next 2 years. Continuing with our cook Sanji, he, like Zoro, had a dream that he had shared with everyone important from his past. And this was an especially deep bonding moment between him and the former pirate Zeph, because both gentlemen had the dream of finding the All Blue, a legendary ocean that's supposed to be on the Grand Line, and it's a place where all 4 seas come together, bringing fish and different organisms from all over the globe, such as various algae and other ingredients that would be pretty much impossible to gather together to create the perfect cuisine. Earlier in the adventure, Sanji had a couple of other unusual dreams. For instance, he wanted to visit Fishman Island so he could see a mermaid, and that's already been fulfilled. And he also wished to consume the Tsukisuku no Mi, which is the clear fruit, and make him invisible so he could peeping Tom on anybody he wanted. But unfortunately for him, Absalom destroyed that dream because he had already eaten it when we met him on Thriller Bark. However, from what we saw at the end of the Wano arc, Sanji might have gotten his dream after all. This is because, ironically, when he wore his raid suit that he had gotten from the Vinsmoke family on Whole Cake Island, this unlocked and activated his latent genetic modifications. And even after Sanji destroyed the suit, he actually has the skill embedded in his DNA, just like his siblings have their own unique abilities. In a very similar way to Zoro, Sanji too nearly gave up on his own dream of locating the All Blue. Also, he could protect Zeph from his birth family because they had been threatening to kill him if he didn't marry Pudding to broker that peace between the Vinsmoke clan and Big Mom's family. Changing topics over to our ship's Dr. Chopper, he has the dream of becoming the greatest doctor in the world that can cure any disease, just like the ambition of his father, Dr. Hirulo, all the while exploring the world with his friends and expanding his horizons. When you compare Chopper's dreams to those of his comrades, it may seem very small, but achieving his goal is just as difficult, if not in some cases more so than those of his companions for this to be realized. Because Chopper's gonna have to search the world and find new diseases to cure so that he knows he's in fact achieved that dream. Next, let's talk about Robin, because her dream is to find all of the road poneglyphs and all of the information that tells the true story of the world of One Piece, including everything that happened during the Void Century. And this is all to continue the research of her mother, Nico Olivia, and her former mentor, Professor Clover. Now, Robin did have an opportunity to learn about the Void Century after talking to Silver's Rayleigh, but instead she decided to continue her journey so she could find it out for herself. Now, later in the story, we learned about the road poneglyphs that point to Laugh Tale. There is also a group called the Rio poneglyphs, or the ones that specifically deal with the information from the Void Century and the true history of the world. From building knowledge to building ships, Franky's dream is to create and travel on a dream ship that will go through countless battles and overcome all the extreme difficulties to reach the end of the Grand Line. This is why he created the Straw Hat's current ship, the Thousand Sunny, and has vowed to keep it in great condition. Franky also had a very brief dream, which was to beat Spandam to pieces, but this was thankfully fulfilled at the end of the Enies Lobby arc. Of all the dreams among the Straw Hat crewmates, Brook has probably the most meaningful and most heartbreaking one of them all. now because he wants to return to his companion Laboon. This connection was an incredible circle back to Reverse Mountain, where we met the great whale who had been protecting the area waiting for his crew to return. It was in this flashback that we learned that the tiny little baby Laboon was once a part of Brook's former crew known as the Rubbar Pirates, but he had to be left behind at Reverse Mountain for his own safety. But Brook had promised to return after they had crossed the entire Grand Line. The reason for this dream's importance to Brook is not just because of the promise he made to Laboon, but it's because of his former crewmates who lost their lives on the journey, all to deliver the final song that the whole crew sang as each of them tragically lost their lives in the Florian Triangle. And finally, we come to our helmsman Jinbei, who has a dream that he inherited from his former captain Fisher Tiger, and that is to see the coexistence of humans and fishmen together. Now, he had initially resigned from Neptune's royal guards to join Fisher Tiger in his quest for equality, but later allied himself with the world government, becoming a warlord of the sea. After his time with Fisher Tiger, Jinbei ended up allying himself with Big Mom and Whitebeard to protect the citizens of Fishman Island. But the Sun Pirates had said that these actions were primarily for the benefit of others, and Jinbei was then encouraged later to follow his newfound desire to help Luffy become the next king of the pirates. As you can see, with all of these amazing dreams that the current Straw Hat crew members have, this is the reason we won't see any romantic interest being created anytime soon within our story. However, it still doesn't take it off the table, because as we get towards the end of this final saga, we might see an epilogue where the couples that were eventually destined to come together actually come together. But only time will tell what Oda Sensei has in store for us and how these relationships eventually blossom. So with all that said, my friends, we'd now love to know what you think about it. First of all, going back to Luffy's dream, what do you think his actual real dream is? We've asked this question on a couple of different videos, but we're still curious to find out what you think about it, and especially as we learn more and more in these final flashbacks and these final sagas, where do you think Luffy's dream is going? Next, what couples would you like to see come together? Now, we often see in our comments that Luffy and Nami are a very popular couple, but outside of some of our main characters, what other relationships would you love to see come together in an epilogue? Let us know what you think in the comments below. As we wrap up our video for the day, we want to first thank you all so much for watching, especially those of you who've made it here to the very end. Make sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. I look forward to seeing you all in our next video. Let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.